everybody. I'm JD,
I'm Gail.
and it's our Election Day special. We're going to do a quick show here. Time to get out and vote. How you doing today, Gail?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to going to vote.
You haven't voted yet? I thought
No.
you were being an early voter.
Nah.
You're going to go out and stand in line like me, huh?
Where ours is at, it moves fairly quickly.
That's good. Hopefully ours will too. We're going to wait till everybody gets, goes off to work. I imagine a lot of people are there before work, so.
Yeah. They open up at 7, so I'm going to go out about 10 o'clock probably.
Yeah, we were thinking sometime after 9. Well, let's do the latest news. The latest news is Joe Rogan had Elon Musk on. I guess it was yesterday. They had like a 2-hour conversation or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And then a couple hours later, I think it was around 8, 9 o'clock last night, Joe Rogan has endorsed President Trump. So that's a big, some big news right there.
Yeah.
But on the other end,
you know why?
What's that?
He likes Vance.
Yeah. He was really impressed with the conversation he had with Vance.
Singular, because Vance.
Yep.
He really surprises me.
Yep. Yeah,
he's intelligent, quick-witted. He's not overboard in either direction.
And he thinks on his feet pretty good.
Yes, he does. I really like Vance.
Yeah.
Hey, too, that's why I have him as president.
And he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. And
right.
I'm the same way. If I'm talking with somebody, even if we have different views or whatever, if he's honest enough to tell me what's on his mind, I'd rather trust him than someone who won't tell me what's on their mind.
Right.
How can you trust somebody, even if you disagree with them, or even if you agree with them, if they're afraid to tell you what they really think? Is that someone that you want to give power to?
It's like you're supposed to be a judge and you can't define a woman.
Yeah. So speaking of somebody who doesn't know what's on their mind, somebody did come out to endorse Kamala Harris. Ready? Big name.
Da-da-da!
Jim Cramer.
Jim Cramer
comes out and says it looks like Kamala Harris is going to take this because of what's going on with Wall Street. So there is something called the inverse Cramer trade. And that's anytime Cramer tells you to do something, it's going to be the opposite.
Correct.
So I don't know if that's an endorsement or not for Kamala, but we wish her well. But there is some news coming out real quick on the latest here. We're going to do some quick polls here. This is the latest polls coming out. In terms of averages, 538's model assigns a 53% probability of a Trump win and a 46% probability of a Harris win. And Nate Silver came out with his last poll, and he says it's about the same. He gives it 54% Trump's going to win with 46% for Harris. Republicans are clearly favored to win the Senate, with 538 averages assigning a 90% probability, while the House is neck and neck. So the Republicans look like they're probably going to take the Senate, get back power from the Senate. Not sure on the House, but there is some news on the House race because over the weekend, Hillary Clinton was seen in the Tampa area. Now, everybody's saying this is not because Florida's in play. What's happening in Tampa is a big blue area. That's where all the liberals go, move in,
St. Pete and Tampa is big time.
Yeah. What's happening there is there's a big race for a Congress seat. Usually it's a blue seat. It's been held blue for quite a while. It looks like it's going to flip to red, and that's why they sent Hillary down there. It wasn't to campaign for Harris. It's to campaign to keep another seat from going red. So, there is some signs that, we're not going to say a red wave, but we'll see what's happening. They're hurting everywhere. So this is right now is the latest is, Harris is trying to save Pennsylvania and Hillary's trying to save one seat. So
yeah,
I'll let you think what you want to think, but that's the latest news going out.
People, they tell them that the economy is doing great, but I think most people look at the how much the gas tank fills and how much the grocery cart is, and they go like, it would Trump.
Yeah, that's what people are going to vote with their pocketbooks. We just don't know on the women's side. You know, how many are going to vote to have their daughters the right to kill their grandkids, or how many are going to say my kids aren't going to be able to grow up with high prices? You know, how am I going to feed my kids? You know, so that's what you got to look at. So we'll see how the women vote go, but right now the men need to get out and vote. Everybody needs to get out to vote. Get out there and do your part. It's one of the few civic duties you can do. Pretty easy. Go out and vote.
Yeah, you know what you were saying there, and of course, I can be an agitator. I had this liberal woman of another religious faith down the street, and she was all the time yada 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 yada. Walmart's destroying America. Walmart's doing this. This is that. It's just, I says, and she looked at me. She says, and I'm sure you're going to say it's all women's fault. I said, well, let me look at it this way. 70 to 80% of all sales in all stores is women. So that means that 70 to 80% of all the sales at Walmart are women. You're right, it's men because they buy that much fishing tackle. Of course, you got mad and stomped down the street. But the thing is women, once they use their brain, they're intelligent. They get distracted by things. Once they use their brain about what the cost is, what's the cost of gasoline, what's the cost of insurance, what's the cost of groceries,
the pocketbook. Yep.
Then they start.
Well, you know, one thing you got to remember is that women control 90% of the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, you look, when you go to the store, who do you give your money to when you buy something? A woman usually is the cashier. When you go to a bank or a teller and you give your money to the bank, who's taking that money? It's the women. You know, when you go home and, you know, you get your paycheck, you give it to your wife so she can buy groceries. Again, you know, women control 90% of the money.
Oh, absolutely.
They have all control. Just don't tell them. Shh. Morning, dear. How you doing?
But no, really, they
We're just having fun, folks.
Yeah, but the thing is there's a lot of truth to it. So, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of being distracted, over the weekend, it looks like half of America was distracted by a squirrel.
Yeah.
Peanut the squirrel. Did you hear that story?
Yeah, that was tragic.
Let me give you a quick synopsis of what's the average American goes through. Most of your average Americans really don't want nothing to do with government. In other words, you know, it's not that they purposely stay away from government. Is they're busy living their lives, you know, raising their children, running their businesses. Most Americans, the only time they interact with the government is when they have to go get their license or they have to go get a tag or something or pay a tax. That's about the only time they really are involved with the government, you know, and usually it's a pain in the ass. You know, when you have to go to the DMV, it's like, oh God, I got to do this. But most people don't interact with the government until something like this squirrel story happens. Here's a couple that's had a squirrel for like 7 years. They raised it from a baby because the mother was killed by a car. So, you know, they're bothering nobody. They're raising a squirrel in their house. They really don't care about the government. You know, they're not interacting with the government. But all of a sudden, after 7 years, the government comes into the house. They get a judge to sign some kind of
search warrant
to go in, and they disrupt their lives. They rip the pets right from these people, and then they go and kill the pets. The pets wasn't hurting anybody. They were. If there's no victim, there's no crime, and having this pet was not a crime. Then all of a sudden, the government breaks down the door, searches the house, takes their pets under threat, and then kills the pets. The government came into their lives, and now they really understand what it's like when you have a tyrannical government come in and just rip up your life. You know, here they were just trying to be themselves, and now the government has interfered into their life. And this is what the average American is seeing time after time, like especially after the COVID incident when the schools were locked down, everybody was locked down. The parents really didn't get involved with the government until they realized their kids weren't allowed to go to school. So when they started going to the school board meetings, all of a sudden they realized it's the idiots are in control. And again, this is when the government comes into their lives. This is when the average American wakes up. And this is what looks like happening right now. The average American is seeing what an overbearing government can do to people. And I think it's starting to wake people up. Don't know if it's enough, but we'll find out later tonight, and we'll see how this goes. But yeah, the average American is getting tired of the government just barging in their lives when they were bothering nobody.
Well, the way I heard the story is Pnut the squirrel was on TikTok, Instagram, and all kinds of stuff, and the husband and wife ran a animal rescue place with horses, cats, dogs.
Yeah, they bought 300 acres.
Yes. Now, you heard why it happened, right?
Let me know.
A neighbor didn't like the sign that was in their front yard. So she called up the police and said that the squirrel bit her.
Well, the squirrel did end up biting somebody. And
well,
that's what
because they were handling it roughly and it was scared.
Yeah, and then that gave him the excuse to say, well, we need to kill him to see if he has rabies. It's just nuts. People are getting tired of it. Just, yeah. Overbearing neighbors and overbearing government.
We were there for like 5 or 6 hours, went through every inch of the house.
Yep.
Happened to look through his wife's underwear, all kinds of shit. And he had to have a police escort to take him back in the house so he could go to the bathroom.
Well, everybody, that's what you're voting for or against today. So again, get out there and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, even though we think it does, but you need to get out there and exercise your right to vote and have a say. What's wrong with that, right? All right. Well, I need to go stand in line.
All righty.
We tried to vote early, but there was a long line voting early, so it looks like either way we're going to be in a line, but we're going to do it.
All righty.
All right. I'm JD.
And I'm Gail.
And thank you for listening to us, the Sneaky Bastards. If you would, give us a like, spread the word, and we'll see you shortly.